Hello everyone, I'm Renowned Zero. We are back again talking about how now the Square Enix account is running damage control. They're running damage control for the director of the Final Fantasy VII Remake after he said that you shouldn't play the original game, you should only play the modern remake of our game. The one that we completely butchered the story, we butchered the character development, we butchered really powerful scenes from the original game because we wanted to, of course, attune for the modern audience that can't handle the dark themes that were involved in the original Final Fantasy VII. Now, it's interesting that they put this out saying, why is the original Final Fantasy VII such a beloved adventure? We'll explain. They had to do an entire article to explain to the playing viewer or the paying customer why the game is such a beloved adventure. Now, it's hilarious how that it can absolutely, become a classic and still hold up to this day if you decide to play the original Final Fantasy VII, and I highly recommend playing the original Final Fantasy VII. If you've yet to play, it's available as an early purchase bonus for Final Fantasy VII Remake, integrated on Nintendo Switch 2, Series X and S, and Xbox on PC. Now, I find it really hilarious that they go through, again, this entire article. They make an entire article on their official website trying to explain to you why the game is so important to play. Meanwhile, they have their director doing the absolute opposite, and now it seems like they're doing this to run damage control so that people don't forget that this game exists, even though it does. And it's funny that there seems to be different messaging between the director, the remake, and Square Enix. Final Fantasy VII Remake reimagines the original Final Fantasy VII in particular style, in a worse style than the original because the original is still far superior as far as character development, storytelling, etc. I said this in yesterday's video, and thank you guys for watching yesterday's video if you had a chance to watch it. The acclaimed RPG follows Cloud and his comrades from the original game's iconic opening through to their escape from the city of Midgar with plenty of surprises along the way. Now that's the remake. That's the first of 3 parts of Final Fantasy VII when you can get the entire game from the original story. It's a love letter to the original Final Fantasy VII. I 100% disagree. A game that's as brilliant today as it was when it originally launched in 1997, but don't take our word for it, you can see for yourself. Some of you may be wondering what's so good about Final Fantasy VII, why it is still regularly cited as one of the best games of all time. The opening mission is great. The opening of Final Fantasy VII is a masterclass on how to start a game. It throws you into the action immediately from the moment Cloud Strife, or whatever you choose to call him, leaps from that train. You're in control and learning about the world and the mechanics of the game. And of course, you're learning about the resistance group of Avalanche. You're meeting Barrett Wallace for the first time, one of the greatest black characters of all time. It's funny how people always forget that Barrett Wallace is such a great character from the original 1997 video game, as you have these weirdos out there complaining about how there isn't enough black representation and great black characters, but they always fail to mention one of the greatest black characters of all time. There's no long exposition dumps, complex jargon, rambling backstory. In mere minutes, you do everything you need to know. Cloud's a mercenary. He's working for an environmental activism group, and then they want to blow up a reactor to stop the energy company, Shinra, from draining the planet's life force. Boom, job done. It lays rock solid foundations for the epic and complex story to build on. It does the same for gameplay. Your first battle takes place in seconds, and you're introduced to the basis of the ATB, or Active Time Battle System, in a gentle, non-threatening encounter. By the time you finish the bombing mission, you'll be fully comfortable with fights, and the game can start layering on more complexity through the materia system, which the materia system is very well put together. It's hugely in-depth, and it takes a second for you to get used to, but it's very well put together. And on top of all of this, you obviously land somewhere different. As the place blows up, you fall into the church where you meet Aerith. Gaining abilities works in Final Fantasy VII is simple. Over the course of the adventure, you collect material that contains skills and spells. Insert these orders in slots. In weapons and armor, you'll be able to use those abilities. Simple to understand system, but it has extraordinary flexibility. Different gear has a different number of slots. Some slots are linked. You can set 2 material to have a combined effect, so you can do like a cure all, cure some type of thing. And even though the characters can use any material, they still have inclinations towards certain skills that you should take into account. Aerith, for example, is clearly geared towards magic and makes for an excellent spellcaster, while Barret is more suited to defensive or physical builds. Yeah, you learn all that stuff when you play the original Final Fantasy VII, not so much when it comes to the remake. Over the course of Final Fantasy VII, you'll amass a fairly sizable party of friends and allies. I think 7 or 8 to be exact. Yuffie and Vincent are both optional characters, and every single one of them is a compelling character in their own right. Which the Rebirth, the second game, you meet Vincent Valentine, but if I remember correctly, Vincent isn't a playable character in the second game, which is absolutely stupid. That said, the game's not content to let them just exist as they are. Every single member of the team gets their own stories that change them and deepen their characters in meaningful ways. Hence why I said, when it comes to character development, the game is full of unforgettable character moments like Red 13's journey of discovery in Cosmo Canyon, or Cid's anger and depression over his failed dreams of going into space. Even the 2 optional party members, Yuffie and Vincent, which I said, have compelling side quests that develop them in fascinating ways. The villains are compelling, like Sephiroth. You figure out that it's not only Shinra, but you figure out that that whole plot with Shinra is actually just a side plot, whereas Sephiroth is the true villain of the story, wanting to cast Meteor, and you learn that the Ancients are the race that were put on Earth to defeat all evil, and that is why Sephiroth ultimately kills Aerith, because she is the last remaining Ancient who can stop his evil, which you discover that in Disc 1 of the original Final Fantasy VII. There's a saying, you can always judge a man by the quality of his enemies. If that's true, then Cloud Strife must officially be one of the best people ever, because the villains of Final Fantasy VII are beyond great. Obviously, Sephiroth gets a lot of attention, and rightfully so. He's a tragic figure, a deeply personal threat to the team, and dangerously effective throughout. Plus, he has one heck of a sword. He was an experiment with the Genova project. But Final Fantasy VII is packed full of other genuinely brilliant antagonists, each one of which could headline as the big bad in any other game. There's a smug and ruthless President Shinra, the cruel and ambitious Rufus, and the deeply sinister scientist Hojo, just to name a few. Big shout out to the Turks, Sheng, Reino, Rude, and Elena. Essentially, Shinra's fixers pop up to harass the heroes throughout the adventure, and they're responsible for some of the most memorable moments, like the helicopter scene where they absolutely kidnap Aerith, and things of that nature. Unlike other bad guys, the Turks aren't always a direct threat. They typically have their own missions and are perfectly willing to ignore or even work with Cloud's band if it helps them. In one particularly amusing scene, they even refuse to fight because they're on holiday. Yeah, that's pretty hilarious. Altogether, all this other stuff. Okay, so maybe One Wing Angel works better as an audio track than it does written down, but it's an absolutely amazing piece of music, and that's something you can say about the entirety of Nobuo Uematsu's Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. 100%. That's during, of course, this scene right up here is when that all happens, when he's burning the town of Nibelheim, which is Cloud's hometown, which is here. This is the town of Nibelheim right here. It's an eclectic track list that range from rock and boss themes like Fight On to dream-like tunes like Listen to the Cries of the Planet. With so many different styles, it could be all over the place, but every single track, without exception, fits the game and enhances the tone of that particular scene. Uematsu really is a master of his craft. Yes, he absolutely is. He's created most of the most memorable music tracks in all of Final Fantasy, including Return to Xanarkand, which is my favorite in particular, as well as One Wing Angel. But I find it still hilarious how now they got to do this whole entire backtracking of what this man said, the remake director, how you should ignore the original game even though look at how great it is and just play the remakes only, when these wonderful things are all included in this game, all these different plot lines, villains, story choices, and character developments. But you should completely ignore that because the new one is made for everyone, quote unquote, even though this game was literally baby's first steps into the JRPG world. Me personally, I started with Final Fantasy 2 and 3 on the Super Nintendo, which are correctly Final Fantasy 4 and 6. So I find this really funny that this is all happening with Square Enix and the remake director. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Have you ever played the original Final Fantasy VII? What kind of experience did you have? And did you enjoy the ride from beginning to end? If you did finish the game, I personally finished the game on stream about 1 or 2 years ago, and is an absolutely fantastic masterpiece of a video game. So thank you all for checking out this video. Really do appreciate all the new subscribers, returning subscribers, new viewers, and returning viewers. If you did like the video, smash the like button. Comment below how you feel about this. Subscribe for more content. Hit the bell for notifications. Set the bell to all. That way you'll get a notification anytime I post a new video or go live on the channel. See you guys in the next one. Peace.